Tony, how are you? Nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm good.
I don't think we've ever met before.
I feel like we know a lot of the same people, but I don't think we officially met. So nice to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's
I am a
nice to
big
meet you.
fan.
Oh, well, thank you. Likewise. I mean, I'm a very big admirer of everything you've accomplished in your life, in your sport. I know that you came big on the scene with skateboarding. You were like, it was the 80s, and you invented it's called the 900. Can you explain to our female listeners what that is in case any of them don't know?
Yeah, well, that refers to degrees of rotation. So it is basically a two and a half spin in the air, kind of like what you would see on a trapeze, but from a ramp and coming back down the ramp without anything to catch you.
Wait, how does it compare to what Simone Biles has been up to these last few weeks?
I It would be like if Simone Biles was trying a trick for 5 or 10 years and then she finally made it once.
Yeah, okay.
And then also landed on wheels.
And so talk to me a little bit about recently, didn't you have a pretty bad, you broke your femur, right?
I did.
How did,
Yes.
was that during skateboarding?
That was during skateboarding. Yes.
Uh-oh. And that was more recent. That was like a year or two ago,
That
right?
was last March. Yeah.
First of all, let's talk about mental health during an injury because especially when you're an athlete. I want to talk about being an athlete and your mental health space transitioning kind of out of being at the top of your game, which meaning your youth, and what that does because you have children. I know you have children who and one of them is a pro skateboarder, correct?
Hmm.
So talk to me about what that is like. Let's start from transitioning out of your career. There is no one who's more famous for skateboarding than you are. And so what did that feel like?
When you say transitioning out of being at the top of your game, that was a very hard and fast transition for me because I felt like I was still skating up to my potential at that time. And then I fucked around and found out like I was doing a trick that I had done thousands of times. I didn't have enough speed or I didn't have the usual amount of speed. I came down on the ramp sooner than expected and just couldn't adjust for it. And the next thing I know, my leg is pointing the other direction. And the recovery for that was very difficult. I've actually had sort of a failed round of recovery because I got back on my skateboard too soon. So I had to have surgery again about 8 months later. And ever since then, I've been humbled in terms of what I expect of my skating, what I expect of myself, what it means to be a professional, what it means to be even relevant on a skateboard. And I've definitely toned down all my expectations since then and just happy to be skating again. So mentally it was really difficult for me because I felt like that was my identity, even though I have a lot of other things that I do and I advocate for skating and public skate parks and the like, but I was always wrapped up in walking the walk. And when that was taken away from me from my own fault, I had to wrestle with that. And I've come to a place where I'm just glad to be able to do it at all. And it doesn't have to be at that level. But I did it at that level for so long that it was very difficult to let go of.
Yeah, I find it fascinating with athletes, when they retire or when they have to kind of transition out of their sport because of age and because of their body just isn't willing to cooperate anymore. What that must mean for them because I know how much relevancy I get from work, and if someone said, "Oh, you can't, you're not allowed to talk anymore," or what, I don't know how I
Yeah.
would compute that. Now, is that something you dealt with like on your own? Did you have to go to therapy for this?
I do see a therapist regularly, and he definitely helped with giving me that perspective. My wife was really the one who was the most helpful because she's the one who gives it to me straight and is like, look, you represent more than just riding your skateboard, and you should embrace that more and be thankful for that and lean into it. And she's right. And so when I go, like for instance, if I go to do a skate exhibition now, I'm not so hyper fixated on my own performance. I'm just stoked to be in the mix.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that people want to see me even. So I've lowered my expectation and it's more enjoyable that way. I think that's what it is. I was always so driven and so motivated to do the absolute best I could possibly do that I lost sight of just the enjoyment of the act of it and the scenarios where I get to be like I get to travel the world and ride my skateboard and people pay me to do that. That's just wild. I'm 55.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy that you're still skateboarding at 55 years old. I mean, hopefully that's a new norm that people will, be able to
I'm the guinea pig for how far you can
for
take it, for
everybody.
sure.
Well, Tony, you may be able to help with this since I know you have had some teenage boys in your house for quite some time. Dear Chelsea, I'm the mother of 18-year-old boy-girl twins. I'm very frustrated with my son's lack of good hygiene. He does shower, but he puts his dirty clothes back on. He rarely does laundry unless I force him to. He never brushes his teeth and somehow doesn't have cavities. His room smells like dirty ass constantly. How can I get him to care how he smells? He's not depressed. He's just lazy and doesn't care. Thanks for any help you can offer. Tara from PA.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's tricky. My best approach to that has been about how offensive it is to your partner or your potential partners or your your
Girls at
courtships
school,
of any kind.
etc.
The girls at school, yeah, I mean that was it. Like one of my sons was, I think he was trying to be more hippie about it, but at some point it was just offensive to everyone, and I had to tell him, because we could travel with him, and I was like, you got to put on deodorant, you've got to brush your teeth more often, and at one point he brought a girl along to one of our trips, and I that's when I got serious.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like you're in close quarters with this person all the time.
Yeah, I mean, hygiene in general, I understand there's a phase within all of our lives. I have had phases where I didn't feel the most hygienic in my life, where I just, I like to eat food in bed. I don't care if there's like mustard on the sheet. I'll go to bed like that. But in terms of personal hygiene, there is something very undignified about not accessing healthy water, clean water when you have access to it. And it is putting on dirty clothing after you take a shower is really gross.
That is counterintuitive.
It's counterintuitive, and I'm sure there's a lot of masturbating going on with this kid too, because he's a teenage boy. So
Yes.
who knows what put that in the mix that we didn't mention, And I want to say, in these instances, it's almost more important for someone outside of the family to make the point to them rather than someone in the family, and not in the sense of publicly shaming them and posting pictures of his room or whatever on your social platforms. I don't mean like that, but I think it would be important if you could enlist one of his friends or one of your friends or someone to make a comment that would actually make him care that he's having an impact not only on his inner family life, which he clearly doesn't care about, offending, but someone outside the family circle. Maybe it's a girl. Maybe maybe you have one of your friend's daughters say something, and it doesn't have to be like a public roasting, but in a private way, you'd be a lot cuter if you smelled better, or who knows?
Yeah.
Or just by the accounts of girls and women who are like, I was not going to go home with that guy because he smelled, and his place was a pigsty. I was out of there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe you can go through TikTok or Instagram and just collect a bunch of videos of women talking about how gross they find men who don't bathe
For
are.
sure. And it's always a deal breaker. So, and not always, but it seems like more often than not.
Yeah, it is a deal breaker. I mean, I understand teenage boys are one section, but listen, also, there is a very, very strong chance he will grow out of this phase of his life. So while it's not fun to deal with, you have to take some comfort in knowing that most people don't go through life like that.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like he might grow out of it soon. And there's also maybe you can incentivize it. It's a little bit, but hopefully he will just.
Yeah, I mean, I
it.
don't have any problem with bribing children to behave better, throwing in an extra video game or whatever he's into. If he, if he cleans his room, washes his clothes, all of those things. I mean, I don't think there's anything.
But they're almost college age, right? I mean, that's
18.
Oh, he's 18. Sorry, I thought.
They're going to go off to college. Then it's going to be a roommate's problem. The roommate's not going to bribe them.
Oh.
Yeah, and I feel like college, you're going to get more peer pressure around dude, you didn't shower this week or whatever.
Yeah, that's going to get sorted out in college. So don't worry. Set him free.
To be harassed by his peers.